So with more transfer rumours going around and with more completed deals going through in the past week, we've got loads to talk over today. Let's jump into it. Guys, welcome back to another video and another episode of the Championship Transfer Rumour Roundup. The transfer window and market is already in full swing. We've had several completed deals go through in the past week, which we'll be discussing in today's video. And as well as that, we've also got an abundance of transfer rumours. As always, if you do go to enjoy today's video, make sure to leave a like. If we get 350 likes on today's video, that would be massively appreciated. Subscribe for a bit of regular Championship content and check out the Patreon. Link to that is down below. But without any further ado, let's start out by talking about some completed transfers. And so let's start out by talking about some departing Luton players, because there have been a couple. James Collins, first of all, has completed the move to Cardiff with his contract expiring at the end of the season. And I think that Cardiff have got a decent deal here. When you look at James Collins' goal scoring record over the last couple of seasons in the Championship, 10 goals this season, 14 the season before that. I think there's certainly the feeling with Luton especially that this sort of core group of players that had them promoted from League One in the last 2 seasons together in the Championship, there's going to be quite a refresh of the players and the personnel, so I'm really looking forward to seeing some of the business that Luton do over this transfer window. But in terms of the move from Collins' perspective and Cardiff getting a decent striker, I think it makes sense for them. We all saw that period of the season where Kiefer Moore was out injured for Cardiff and they had a bit of a slump in terms of the goals they were scoring. You know, at times maybe there's been a bit of an over-reliance on Kiefer Moore to continue delivering the goods for them. So to bring in someone for a little bit of competition in that area, someone who can come in for the last 15 minutes of matches and can be subbed in every once in a while, because I think that he will be coming in as that sort of number 2 option up front. But in the Championship, you need to have a competitive squad, and I think that Cardiff are building just that, and they'll have their sights set on the top 6 going into next season. So yeah, I quite like this deal. I think it's a good bit of business. And the next Luton player that has departed is Matty Pearson. He's moved over to Huddersfield Town. Now, this is quite the interesting move, because Huddersfield have had a problem all season with shipping too many goals. They needed a bit more experience and know-how in that back line, and Matty Pearson joins them as a bit of a sort of old school defender, a bit of a no-nonsense sort of player. I think I'm right in saying that. And it's interesting because he sort of goes against what Huddersfield have had in their defenders this season. You know, with the brand of football that Carlos Corberán's tried to integrate there this season, it's all about having the ball at the defender's feet, you know, playing out from the back, being comfortable in those tight situations. Matty Pearson isn't really that sort of player. He sort of goes against the grain in that aspect, but maybe that's what they were after. You know, he is someone who's going to be an absolute battler, who throws his head on everything and, you know, tackles every single last ball and things like that. But on the ball, that probably still leaves a little bit to be desired. So it'll be interesting to see if he's coming into this Huddersfield squad with Carlos Corberán trying to mould him into a ball-playing centre-half, because I'm not sure how that's going to work out for him, or if he's looking for that partnership where you have sort of the traditional, you know, no-nonsense defender and then someone who's going to look to bring the ball out of the back and things like that. So, yeah, stylistically, I'm not all too sure about this one, but time will tell. And Huddersfield have also re-signed former striker Jordan Rhodes. He's come on a free transfer from Sheffield Wednesday. Now, obviously, the sentimental signing in football of going in for a former player doesn't always pay off like the fans want it to. You know, me speaking as a North End fan, when we did the same thing with David Nugent, that didn't really end up working out like a lot of us wanted to. But it's an interesting signing nonetheless. I don't think that anyone's kidding themselves that Jordan Rhodes is the same player now that he was, you know, 5 years ago. I think his last 2 seasons combined for Sheffield Wednesday, he's only scored 10 goals for them. But if you do get the right system and the right players in and around Jordan Rhodes, he can still be an effective player at this level. You know, what's most important from a Huddersfield point of view is he doesn't end up getting isolated like at times some of their strikers did in this previous season. You know, you need the people to be working in and around him, and there is potential there. You know, someone like Josh Koroma coming back and being fully fit, him supplying Jordan Rhodes, them two could have that link up between themselves. So yeah, I'm very interested to see how that one works out for Huddersfield this season. QPR have been another busy club so far in this transfer window. They've turned the Jordi Device loan deal into a permanent one going into next season. I think that's more positivity going around QPR. You know, we all saw the resurgence after some of the players that they brought in that January window. But Jordi Device offers QPR a couple of things actually, because I mean, we've all spoken about how good like Rob Dickey's been this season. If you watched the video we did the other week about each club's most improved player this season, I mentioned Johan Barber in that video. But Jordi Device gives QPR a couple of options. He obviously adds competition into that backline, also gives them the option to play with that 3 at the back, with 3 really quite competitive defenders at this level. And as well as that deal, they've also completed the move for midfielder Sam Field, who joins them on a permanent basis. I think we're signing a 3-year 3-year contract with QPR. We'll get into speaking about some more QPR players in the rumour part of today's video. One departure from QPR has seen goalkeeper Joe Lumley move on to Middlesbrough. I think that probably the right move for his career, to be honest with you. He obviously had that great breakthrough year with QPR. The season after struggled a little bit, you know, with inconsistencies. There was that changing around of goalkeepers, you know, it was flipping between him and Kelly, wasn't it? And then this last season has been kept out for the most part by Senny Dieng. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he gets on at Middlesbrough. Obviously they themselves have had their sort of ups and downs with goalkeepers recently, with Bettinelli having a bit of a mixed time throughout the season. So yeah, I'm interested to see how Joe Lumley gets on there. Birmingham have completed the loan signing of Riley McGree. He's coming on loan for the first half of next season. He obviously was on loan at Blues this season and found his game time a little bit hard to come by at one point under Aita Karanka, but started to show his quality once again towards the end of the season when he was given a bit more leeway under Lee Bowyer. And Watford have completed the deal for youngster Kwadwo Bar. He's coming over from Rochdale. The youngster had originally signed a pre-contract with Manchester City, although after that deal collapsed, Watford were able to swoop in and secure the signature. But there are some of the completed deals which have gone through in the past 7 days. Now, without any further ado, let's talk about some transfer rumours. Starting out with Middlesbrough, who are reportedly interested in Rotherham striker Michael Smith. Reportedly Middlesbrough are also interested in James Collins, although he has ended up in Cardiff. Now, when it comes to Middlesbrough, they do seemingly have a shortage of strikers heading into this next season, as several of them and their contracts have run out, like we spoke about on last time's video. Michael Smith would be an interesting player. I think that as well as a decent goal scoring record, you know, he got into double figures for Rotherham this season. His overall game has improved with them this season. 10 goals, 3 assists, 7 aerial duels, 1 per 90. I think that what is going to be important with for Middlesbrough, because their track record recently with strikers hasn't exactly been great, has it? It's getting the right balance. You know, if you do bring in a Michael Smith, you need to bring someone in alongside him who's going to be able to, you know, play off him. You know, Smith can come in that sort of like target man mould, but it's all about the players that you then get around him, if that makes sense. But yeah, I could see that one having a bit of legs to it. Now, I think I'm going to do a completely separate video on every Championship club sort of retain list and the best players that will be available as free agents this season. But Sheffield Wednesday announced their retain list the other day, and I mean, there's real value in the free agent market this season, where I feel like quite a few Championship clubs will be looking into. So in terms of some of the names that have been released by Sheffield Wednesday and are now available on free transfers, the likes of Kadeem Harris, Elias Kachunga, Tom Lees, Matt Penny, Moses Adebayo, Jordan Rhodes, who's obviously already been snapped up, Adam Reach and Kieran Westwood as well. Adam Reach is especially quite an interesting player, actually, because I mean, no doubt there's going to be, you know, Championship interest in the player. In January, I think there was some interest from Celtic as well, wasn't there? There's a good player there at Championship level who has just sort of lost his way over the last couple of seasons, so it'll be interesting to see if anyone can get his career back on track. Now, one player who is still under contract at Sheffield Wednesday, although understandably is being linked with a move away at the moment, is Barry Bannon. Now, I'm very interested to see what the future holds for him, because I mean, individually he is someone who's like way above League One standard, isn't he? It's interesting as well because he only recently signed the contract extension with Sheffield Wednesday back in February. Could that possibly have been done to sort of protect his value for this upcoming transfer window, so that Sheffield Wednesday can still get sort of like a decent fee for him, perhaps? Bristol City have been one of the clubs mentioned in contention for him. It makes sense, really, but I'm interested to see what the future holds for Bannon. Wednesday fans, if you had to say right now, do you think Barry Bannon will still be with you come the start of next season? Let me know down below. One potential incoming for Sheffield Wednesday is Gillingham winger Jordan Graham, who they've been linked to. The former Wolves forward has had a really good season in League One, actually, with Gillingham, scoring 12 goals and getting 6 assists. Could be that sort of replacement coming in for someone like an Adam Reach or Kadeem Harris, someone who has a bit of flair and know-how about the level. Birmingham were another club who have also seen mentioned with him. And Doncaster Rovers defender Reece James has also been linked with a move to Sheffield Wednesday. Wednesday obviously in need of refreshing their fullbacks coming into this new season, and with Reece James previously working with Darren Moore at Doncaster, that's obviously where the link has come from. Now, his contract is expiring at Doncaster at the end of the season, and so it's up to the player whether he signs on with them. He's played a fair bit of this season at fullback and also in midfield as well, so pretty versatile in the positions he can play. Wouldn't be surprised if there was some Championship interest in here either, after a good season with Doncaster, scoring 7 goals and getting 2 assists. On the last video, we were speaking about Luton defender Sonny Bradley and his potential links to both Preston North End and Ipswich Town. However, it now looks as if the defender will be signing a contract with Luton. So obviously that will mean that Preston and Ipswich will have to look elsewhere for their centre halves. But yeah, if true, good news for Luton, good defender. Speaking of Preston and centre halves, it looks as if we're going in for Stoke defender Liam Lindsay, this time on a permanent basis. Obviously we had him on loan for the second half of this season, where I think he's done an alright job for us. I think it's a alright signing. I think he's a solid player. Questions maybe arise when you think of, you know, Patrick Bauer, who's going to be returning into the back line. One potential flaw in Lindsay's game is his pace, you know, and mobility. At times he can be caught out in those certain situations. So him and Bauer partner together, don't get me wrong, like physically and sort of aerially, they could be absolutely dominant together. But in terms of a ball going in behind or something like that, maybe there could be a few complications in like that. But no, I certainly think that in terms of, you know, carrying on strengthening the squad, and it allows us to have numbers and championship experience, I don't mind this deal. It also looks as if we've inquired about getting Seth van den Berg on loan for next season as well. I think he's done fairly well since coming over from Liverpool, and done really well out of position as well, playing at right back. But the big deal that Preston are inquiring for at the moment is that of goalkeeper Daniel Iverson, who's done absolutely wonderfully since he came on loan from Leicester in the second half of the season. Only 4 championship goalkeepers this season have a better save percentage than he does at North End, and considering the back line that was playing in front of him at times was pretty shambolic, he had a massive part to play in us turning around that defensive record in the second half of the season. So yeah, if we manage to get anything on this deal, which I'm not all too hopeful for because I think that he was playing at a level above the rest of the squad towards the end of the season, then it would be a massive deal. Now with QPR, it feels as if they're going to have quite a busy summer transfer window, and we'll speak about some of the other potential incomings in just a second. But one potential departure could be player of the season Rob Dickie. He's been absolutely brilliant for QPR throughout this season, and his debut year with them after coming in from Oxford has ticked a lot of boxes and has already garnered interest from some Premier League clubs, one of them being Newcastle United. Now, it'll be interesting to see if anything does develop over this story, but Rob Dickie, from a Premier League club's perspective, like someone like Newcastle, probably would tick a lot of boxes. QPR, though, would be keen to hold out on this one and would be demanding a huge fee if he was to be let go. Spurs defender Cameron Carter-Vickers has also been linked with a move to Newcastle United. Now, I'm bringing this one up as obviously he's been out on loan at Bournemouth for the season, where he's actually done really well, and now Bournemouth have quite the interesting summer coming up, you feel like, with them losing in the playoff semi-finals and still a lot of big earners and big players at that club. You feel like they're going to be another team who's going to be in for quite a ride this summer, with players possibly departing. So yeah, not having potentially Cameron Carter-Vickers come back for next season is obviously the blow to their back line. Going back to QPR though, it looks as if they are hotly pursuing a deal for striker Charlie Austin. Now, like we were speaking about with the sort of Jordan Rhodes deal and how sometimes players going back to their former clubs doesn't always particularly work out. Well, Charlie Austin going back to QPR has been a deal which really was the start of revitalising their season. I think that his competition up front as well really started to get the best out of someone like a Lyndon Dykes towards the second end of the season as well. So yeah, if they do manage to tie him up on a permanent basis, they're definitely heading in the right direction. And understandably so, QPR also want to pull off a deal for midfielder Stefan Johansson, who was also a massive part in their turnaround in the second half of the season. Now, Fulham manager Scott Parker is set to hold talks with the player, asking what he basically wants to do, whether he wants to fight for his place at Fulham or make that permanent move over to QPR. I believe he's got just the 12 months left on his contract, so it'll be interesting to see how much money Fulham were holding out for if they were to sell the player, but it'd be a good deal regardless. Coming into QPR, he's been excellent this season. And it also looks as if QPR are set to sign goalkeeper Andy Lonergan on a free contract when his contract at West Brom expires. I mean, you know me as a North End fan, I absolutely love Andy Lonergan from his time at North End back in the day. You know, came up through the Preston Academy, was really good for us, and has since been sort of bouncing around all over. You know, had a stint at Liverpool, didn't he? But yeah, as a backup option to Sonny Dieng after the departure of Joe Lumley, makes sense. You know, experience coming into that role. Rotherham going back down to League One will be looking to bounce back at the first time of asking. They're always really strong at that level, aren't they? And they have been interested in Cambridge United striker Paul Mullen, who's just had an absolutely flawless season with them. 32 goals and 4 assists for Cambridge in League 2. He'd certainly add some firepower into that forward line. And they've also been linked to Accrington Stanley striker Dion Charles, who's also had a terrific year at League 1 level, scoring 19 goals and picking up 3 assists. Hull City have been linked to Gillingham defender Jack Tucker, who's just had a really good season in League 1 with them. However, it seems as if they're unlikely at this stage to meet Gillingham's asking price of the defender. I think previously has been linked to Leeds United, hasn't he? Definitely want to keep your eyes on to see if anything unfolds with that as the transfer window develops. Next up then we head to potentially one of the best players in the Championship and who probably won't be sticking around for next season. That's Danjauma. Now, with Bournemouth's failure in the playoffs, I wouldn't be surprised to see several high-profile players moving on, none more so than Danjauma, who already has several admirers in the Premier League, and understandably so. 17 goals, 7 assists in the league this season. He was their key man throughout their playoff campaign. Already we've seen the likes of West Ham and Southampton being linked. I've also seen Ajax being mentioned at times as well. well. Don't get me wrong, Bournemouth would certainly get a good fee for the winger, but it's all about replacing that quality which may be lost from the squad this summer. Rico Henry's another Championship player who Southampton have had their eye on for some time now. This one would probably depend on what happens with Brentford's playoff campaign should they not be promoted. Probably two of their most saleable assets look to be Rico Henry and of course Ivan Toney as well, so we'll hold off on this one and wait to see what actually happens with the playoff final. But yeah, you'd imagine Rico Henry, being one of the best fullbacks in the Championship for the past few years now, will obviously have his admirers in the Premier League. Brazilian forward Lazaro Marquez has heavily been linked with a move to Huddersfield Town. This one came out a couple of weeks ago, although since has gone a little bit quieter on the transfer front. From what I last read about this deal, Huddersfield were still in advanced talks for the Brazilian forward, who would certainly add a bit of flair into that forward line. But guys, there we have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. As always, if you did see any other rumours that we didn't mention in today's video, get them in the comments down below. If you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. But apart from that, thanks for watching and I'll see you all in the next one.